Okay, this is part 4 of making a Old West leather holster. So in the last video I showed you how to get your stitch line started, and I got into here somewhere. Finished stitching up the skirt of the holster, and I got to the very top of my welt where this will fold, and then we'll stitch that. That'll probably be the next video. This one I'm going to show you how to end off your thread. So I went down to right above my welt, I stitched that through, then I came back one hole and went through one ply. So instead of going through this side and out this side, I now just went up through the middle. So I'm going to pull both needles through. I'm just going to pull them right off the thread. Now you're going to go right over left, pull that down in between the leather, you go right over and go left over right, making a square knot here. You're going to pull that down into the leather, snug that up, whoops, real good. Right. I'm going to take my knife, cut that off and leave a little tab out, and that's what we're going to lighter out here. That one's good. Now we're going to take them, we're going to burn them off. And just tuck the tabs down in there like that. Okay, something else that I usually do, I'll be right back. I just take a hammer of some kind and just kind of tap down my stitch line. Don't have to use a lot of pressure, you're just flattening out that thread a little bit. You want it flat so it doesn't get caught on stuff and fray. And it just keeps it looking a little more uniform. So, okay, got that done. Ended off our thread there. Now I already burnished the bottom because once it's attached like that, it's really hard to burnish the top and the bottom. So we're going to get that done. So how I did this one, I'll do the same thing on the top here. I got my, just keep a bottle with, this is straight water with whatever was on my rag in it. So I'm going to just get the edge of this leather a little wet. Doesn't have to be real wet. Just kind of dry it, make sure there's nothing pooling on there. Okay, now I'm going to take some saddle soap. This is Fibings. I got this in the tack section at a hardware store again. I'm just going to put a little bit of that on here. Don't need a whole lot. Just enough to slick up that edge. That applied pretty good. Wipe off my fingers. Right, I'm going to take my canvas. This is a piece of canvas off a bag from the Army surplus. I think you can order just canvas off the internet too, or you can use a piece of denim. If you got an old pair of jeans, just cut out a little chunk and work that around the edges. You can use just plain water on this, but the saddle soap helps everything adhere better in the fibers so they're not loose and shaggy and ugly looking. Just kind of work that in. You can use a real fine grit sandpaper, I've heard too, in Springfield leather video on how to make a holster. He says that some people use sandpaper, but he uses canvas in that video, and I really like the way it turns out using this canvas. So we're just going to slick that up and make it look, you can almost, there's 2 plies of leather there, and it almost looks like one, which is what I'm borrowing words from that Springfield making a single loop holster video, but that's a really good video on how to make a holster if you're just looking for basics, and like if you weren't going to line it and stuff. That one just does rough out. Okay, now let's see. Now we're gonna glue that. I gotta step away for a second here. Okay, so this is just a diamond chisel. You can use anything that will work for roughing it, but this part of the leather right here is smooth, and if you want this glue to really adhere good, you want to rough that up a little bit. You can use literally anything that will rough it up. These chisels I've used to chisel the edges sometimes, but they're a little small for this kind of leather, so they got a good point to them, so I just use the chisel. And I'm just going to run that along and just rough it up a little. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, just enough to expose some of those fibers. Okay, now put this away so it doesn't dry out, because that would be kind of frustrating. Now I'm going to take my glue. Got a piece of scrap leather here somewhere. That'll work. I'm just going to take my glue. This bottle's got to be about empty. Just going to get a little bit piece of leather here. Oop. I'm going to take a toothpick and just I'm going to dab a little here and there on that line. See how this goes. What this is doing is keeping it tacked so it makes it easier to sew and give it a little more stability when you're done. You can drizzle it straight from your glue bottle, but that bottle is so worn out and the ends wore out. I've had that thing forever. It just doesn't seem to run out, but it's got to be getting close. Got some glue left, so I'm just gonna run a little bit on this other side. This side was already rough out, so I didn't need to scratch it up. I glued the welt onto this side sometime before the last video. Okay. Now I've pre-punched my holes for actually stitching these together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up where I think I want it. Okay. Now I'm going to take a small nail and I'm going to put that through, hopefully, through all these plies of leather. Okay. Now I've got another just a lacing needle. I'm just using random things that I happen to have. Looks like I need to use an awl and open up my hole just a little, which is something that's fairly common, especially when you're going through 5 plies of leather. It's a lot of area to get something through. So I'm going to stick that through that. We'll go down a ways. in the holes again. Just going to stick one of my sewing needles through that. This is just keeping my holes lined up here, is what the purpose of this is. Okay, now I'm going to take a binder clip. Take a smaller one over here. Not too small. Okay. I want to stick another needle in a ways down here. Maybe. Let's just see what we got. Be kind of a struggle getting through 5 plies of leather at times. There we go. Now we'll put another binder clip right there. Okay. Add a little more glue since I got it and it seems to need it. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now, like I said, what these are doing here, the nail and my needles, they're making sure that everything stays lined up so I can stitch it with the holes I punched ahead of time. If you don't punch your holes ahead of time and you're going to go through all 5 plies, or if you didn't use your welt and you're going to use 4 plies, you're going to have a really hard time getting it even, as in even on the back side, because if you start from the front, it's really hard to keep that straight and not end up too far up or too far down or something. So punching them ahead of time and then getting them all lined up like this, I think will work pretty good. I've never really tried this exactly this way before, but it seems to make sense. So that's that. And after that dries, some other day when I'm off of work and whatnot, I will probably take like the top binder clip off and take my nail out and stitch a little ways, then take another binder clip off and stitch a little ways. So I don't want, my glue should adhere pretty good, but it's probably not going to be absolutely perfect. So I want to leave my binder clips in for a little while before I take them off, just so I don't have to redo anything. But so I think that's pretty much it for this video, and I will make another one where I'll show you burnishing the rest of it and stitching all that. When we get done with that, then we got to cut our slits for putting the holster into to retain it to the skirt. I wanted to get this part all stitched together before I marked this and cut those out, just because I wanted to make sure that it sat right. Like if I wanted, I think this one's going to have a little bit of a forward cant, kind of like what John Wayne would have, that rather than going forward at the bottom. So anyways, that's how I'm going to do that, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.